It's 2 p.m. Pacific, which means this must be...
Hello.
Hello. Happy Friday Eve.
Happy Friday Eve, and welcome everybody to Pillars of Franchising. Yet another week and another great guest.
Here we go. Hey, let's talk about word on the street this week.
Okay, let's do. And before we do, I'm going to read out the call-in number because we may talk about some things that you want to call us about. So if you want to call into the show, it's 323-580-5755. Feel free to pick up the line and ask questions of our guest or any of our mentors. But we had a very exciting night last night. We offered a webinar to a professional sports group.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, to tell them a little bit about franchising and why, people in sports do well in franchising and why women do well in franchising, and introduce everybody to the team, and got some really great feedback. How do you think it went?
I think it went really well. I mean, the thing is, it's almost impossible to get all of us together because we are literally scattered across the United States. And it's even harder to get a lot of groups of people together who have similar interests and they're from similar backgrounds. And in this case, from similar organizations. They're all from different teams across the states. And so what a great way to do it, but through a live webinar. So kind of like we're coming to you today, live from all other areas of the country. We had one last night and literally had people from all over and got to talk a lot about kind of the reason that people look to franchising over starting their own business, and really starting, as Ray and I always talk about, with the end in mind and kind of your long game, if you will, kind of a play on the book. Where do you see yourself? And I think that's a question a lot of people don't think about. If you look right now and envision in the next 10 to 15 years, where do you really want to be? I think that always begs to the question, I guess, how are you going to get there? Because a lot of times the answer isn't just the daily 9-to-5 grind working for somebody else. So we explored a lot of those options last night, and certainly that's what all of us here on the show work with individuals on, how to get to that exact answer. Every individual has a different path, and that's what we're here for. So I think it went really well last night.
It did. And we talked about it's never too soon to plan, even if you're not quite ready to make that leap, or you need to get your finances in a little bit of order, or you've got to finish up another job or whatever it is. Never too early to start understanding what it takes to get there, so that you're prepared whenever you are ready to make that decision.
We know that if people are looking to buy into a franchise, I mean, it could move as quickly as 3 months, but it could take as long as a year. And in some cases, if you're dealing like in these weird times we have now, it could go even up to 18 months if you're dealing with build outs and you're dealing with specialty skilled workers. Those are some of the kind of the curveballs that you get that we didn't used to have to worry about. So I think it's really important for people to understand that just because you are thinking about it today, it doesn't mean that you're under this time crunch that your whole world is going to change in 3 months. And it also doesn't mean that it's going to take you 2 years to make it happen either. So the course is certainly set a lot in terms of time up to you and the team that you work with to get it done.
Absolutely. So, as you know, we are doing a lot of events that speak to a lot of different groups of people. So if you haven't looked at our calendar, the magazine for April is coming out tomorrow. Yep. With cover girl Ruth Agbaji of CodeWiz. She gives a great interview and talks a ton about the emotional ups and downs of owning a business, and she was just acquired last year. So she talks about the transition curve and all the tools that she's been using to navigate, the blind optimism, and then the informed pessimism, and then all of the things that you go through. And it was I think it's a really helpful perspective. She was very open and honest about it. But when you look at that magazine tomorrow, check the calendar, because the first Wednesday of every month we have a networking meeting with the Pillars team, whoever can come, where you can learn and ask questions about franchising. We are not doing April because Jerry and I are going to the Titus Center board meeting on Monday through Wednesday. Yep. So I will not do it for April, but starting back up in May, we're going to do that networking event. It's at 5:30 Central Time on Wednesdays.
Yep.
We also do lunch and learns once a month. They're the third Friday of the month at noon Central Time. We have Laura Liss, who's our franchise attorney. And tell everybody, Kristen, what she will talk about. She's going to give it broad strokes of legal things in franchising, but what does that mean to people?
Well, I mean, some of the things that Laura talks about, and I think it's important to kind of disseminate between the two different meetings as well, because, you know, one is more aimed at, so you own a franchise, now what, right? And right. That's more for people who, and not that people who don't own franchises can't attend, because there's a lot to be gained. But our hope is to keep it a little more like, I'm here and now I'm not quite sure what to do. I've kind of tapped my franchisor for all the information they can provide, and now I need a little bit more than what they can provide me. And the other one is really like, you're in the exploration, like, I think I want to get into business for myself. I want to exit corporate America. You know, where do I go next? And so, you know, those are two different types. As it comes to Laura Liss with Fran Law, there's a lot of things that franchise lawyers do that regular lawyers don't. And when we are working with a client on buying a franchise, it's very important that you get a franchise lawyer. We will tell you that again and again. And that's because they help you work through the god-awful franchise disclosure document that can be anywhere from 250 pages to 600 pages. And that's the good, the bad, the ugly, the Bible of the franchise that you're about to buy or that you're reviewing. It has everything from financials to using the logos and all kinds of other fun stuff. Laura can help you review your leases. In the case of one franchisee that we're working with right now, she's leasing a space that is about to undergo a major reconstruction and refacing, which is going to negatively impact her traffic flow, not only for the building, but her markings of the building, everything from people being able to get in there, traffic being able to get past it, her signs being able to go up. Now the code for what her signs need to look like is going to change. So all of those are kinds of things that you want somebody who is skilled at not only franchise law, but also understands leases and things of that nature to satisfy the franchisor and the landlord at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's just a tip of the iceberg of the things that she's going to go over. So
it's one you don't really want to miss if you're a new franchisee. She'll have, and you can ask questions. So that's the most important part. If we're not right on the topic you need to know right that minute, you can raise your hand and ask a question.
Yes. And if you're a small business who thinks that, you know what, the thing I want to do is I want to take my model and I want to replicate it. I want to build my future by turning my business into a franchise. Well, she does that too. She can help you turn your business into a franchise. So another audience perhaps to be interested in this.
Yeah. So if you're interested in that, take a look at the magazine tomorrow. It's in the front section of the magazine. Also, you can email us at yourdream@pillarsoffranchising.com, and I will point you in the direction of the registration links.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I think we are ready for our amazing guest. Kristen, let everybody know who he is.
Oh my goodness, my dear friend. And I can't see the screen, so y'all have to help me. I'm flying a little bit blonde, but I'm hoping that the man I'm sitting by on the virtual screen here has glasses and dark hair. Is he a tall, dark, and handsome man? Is that what I'm sitting by, Ray? No one's talking.
Oh, Ray, you're muted. Oh no.
John Cohen, is that you from Franworth?
Dear God, man, come off the mute. You know better. Our guest has to tell you that? Seriously.
We were just talking about we need a little bit more reality in the show. The dogs were barking, so I put it on mute. Then the dog stopped barking, so I forgot to take it off mute. Sorry.
And
Welcome,
here
John.
I queued him up as tall, dark, and handsome, and you let it sit there.
Yeah.
James John, Mr. from Flush to Plush, John Cohen from Franworth, as Ray and I know him as the master of Molly Maid, right?
Great.
Ray, I'm going to let you take us through his bio, but John, I'm so excited to finally have you here on the show with us.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
excited to be here, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So, John, when did you start franchising? And you know, I assume that was with Molly Maid. Is that correct?
Well, actually, the story goes, I started my first career in McDonald's
Oh,
for a
okay.
franchisee, working for a franchisee, and worked my way up to a store manager, then got into Molly Maid.
Okay. Yeah.
But Ray, I don't really want to date myself, but I could, because I think I'm the elder person in this room when it comes to Molly Maid. So yeah, it was 1997. It was 25 years this month.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Okay, well, when you said the elder in the room, I was going to say, well, that's not possible. But then when you want to put it on the Molly Maid time frame, okay, you win.
Yeah.
But not by much.
Well, I've been in business for 18 years, so that means if you're 25, you were working for Molly Maid for what, 7 years before I started. And so, but anyway, still 18 years is a long time to know anybody in this day and age. And it's been a real pleasure to know you.
Same to you, Ray.
So let's talk a little bit about that journey, John, because when we all started, I think you were actually doing some action committee stuff. Were you not? Or were you on the marketing committee? You were doing something already involved in helping lead the franchisees and working with, I'll call it the mothership, the franchisor.
I was on the Franchise Advisory Council. Yeah,
okay.
You are 100% correct, and enjoyed my time on there. 6 years in total.
Yep.
Wow.
And then I remember you, so you have always kind of been a leader. And obviously when you started at McDonald's, you shared with me, you were like 16. And then you obviously started the leadership role in your life very early. And so we'll credit your parents with that you were brought up as a leader. Is that pretty accurate?
It is. I will let them know your feelings there. I'm sure they'll appreciate that.
Well, I met your dad once, and so I just will automatically kind of think of him and imagine that was his job to create that in you. But and then it seems like your leadership there then took you into even further leadership. I remember you leading a group in SOAR. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that for Molly Maid, what you did for the other owners?
Yeah, so in my journey into the franchisor side of things started with something called SOAR, which was Scale, Optimize, Apply, and Rise. Meg Roberts, who you had on the show before, asked if I could help. I'm local here in Ann Arbor. Headquarters of Molly Maid used to be in Ann Arbor. And said, hey, we've been working together for, I believe it was 7 years at the time already. Why don't you come on and help owners and really scale their businesses in Molly Maid? And we had 4 groups of 8 owners per group, and we took them through a program called SOAR and really helped them grow their business through 4 function areas. One is owner functions. We started with that and building a foundation. We took them through a marketing session, selling, a sales training and how to use our sales systems properly, and then profit and loss. So by taking all those things and building a good foundation for their business, we were able to help them soar.
Right. Yes, I forget what my flock was called. I was in a flock.
You can never remember the flock.
I know.
Each group got to name their own bird.
Yeah.
There were some pretty interesting bird names out there.
Yeah, I'm going to have to look that up. As long as I wasn't the Canadian goose, I was happy because those things irritate me. But I'll tell you, that, and I bring SOAR up specifically because we talk about in Pillars, our mentorship program and being able to provide more than what the typical franchisor provides. And I found it so interesting and so helpful in our system when you joined and the team came up with SOAR, because that really was something above and beyond what a lot of franchisors do, right? And like you said, the goal then was to help everybody scale up. Like, how do we make the next move? How do we get to the next level?
Yeah, and that was really what SOAR was about. So quick story here. I shared Meg Roberts. She was the president of Molly Maid at the time. We went to a bar and grill here in Ann Arbor by the U of M hospital. It's pretty famous and it's been here for a long time. Best burger in Ann Arbor. And this was all devised on a napkin. It's one of those napkin stories.
Sounds like pillars.
It really was. We wrote everything down on a napkin and said, this is what we would like it to be. And you're right. It's something that I've enjoyed my whole career, is mentoring business owners, helping business owners succeed. Really, beyond that, though, is building the team that helps the business owners succeed. And that's where some of the leadership pieces come in. But yes, I'm on the franchisor side today. I still have my franchise. That's why I said 25 years owning my Molly business. So I get to see both sides of it on a consistent basis. I get to hear the tears and the crying and the joys and the cheers. And it's a lot of fun.
And to feel them. And to feel them still, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. My day doesn't go unfinished if I haven't done something for my Molly business, and if I haven't done something in my day job as well.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's one of the things that made John so successful. Is I remember him visiting me when we opened our next location, bigger location. And that was one of the things he was able to empathize with, because he had both. He was on both sides. And I thought that was really fantastic, John. And thanks for visiting us.
I loved it. I still remember it, Ray. I haven't forgotten. Weren't you next to a church?
No, we
initially.
were. That was the old location.
Initially,
the new location was in a 4-story building. But
yes, that's right. I've been to both. You're right. I've been to both of yours.
Yeah.
Yep. The 4-story location was outside the outskirts of a mall.
That's right.
Exactly. Yep. And it's a prime location. And one of the things that I try to get across some of our people who are listening is location means something, because if you can have a location in a warehouse, your employees coming to work aren't as happy as coming to a Class A location. So it makes a big difference in how they feel about coming to work.
So John, tell us about the big transition. Obviously, we don't want to sing the Molly Maid song too long, but you obviously were really great at developing some really strong relationships, and we saw a lot of change happen. Meg left, went to Lash Lounge, part of Franworth, and then next thing we know, you joined into Lash Lounge, which, what a big difference, going from cleaning toilets, where we got the title, the Plush, into Plush, where now you're involved in a lot of Plush brands, right? You went to Lash Lounge, and now you're with Franworth itself doing other brands, right?
Yeah, so my journey, I wound up following Meg over to Franworth after a period of time. She didn't play a major role in that. They'd heard my name here as well and said, hey, we've got some work. We're building brands. So what Franworth is we partner with franchisors who are usually small in scale, who want to grow. And we wind up partnering with them and helping them build systems, help them fill in certain departments like real estate and construction, KPIs with a Power BI dashboard, onboarding franchisees, franchise development. So we do a lot of things, help them build their operations team and what that looks like.
Right.
So we joined. Franworth was also sort of a baby, and we were building in some talent. Meg joined Lash Lounge. And before I get too much into Lash Lounge, I actually want to share a quick story with you guys. So your guest last week was Leanne Tui, correct?
Yes, she was. Yeah.
She's fabulous. I mean, who doesn't enjoy The Blind Side? I mean, what a fantastic story. Well, she's her husband and his brother own a bunch of franchises. They've owned it together and then separate. Well, his girlfriend of many years, the brother's girlfriend,
yeah.
yes, actually became one of Lash Lounge franchisees. Our franchise developer, Julia Berman, took her through all the way through Discovery Day, got her sold in Memphis, Tennessee. Leanne Tui was actually there for the opening, and her name, in case anybody's in Memphis, Tennessee, her name's Dallas Embry. Fantastic business, has really just been a rock star.
Look at there, we got the 6 degrees of separation of Leanne Tui.
Yes, yes. When I watched your show last week and I saw her on, I thought this was a perfect segue. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I joined Franworth, and what we really needed to see is we had sold and started opening a ton of Lash Lounges, and what we needed to do is really build the systems to make franchisees successful. It's what a good franchisor would do. Meg said, hey, why don't you join me here? And we do this together and we build this great system. And I am so happy with what we've done in Lash Lounge. We have 116, it might be 118 today, open locations throughout the United States. And it has done so well. When you look at the beauty industry and you think of COVID and how hard they were hit, you're doing a service.
We just had, I don't know if you saw our digital magazine, but we just had Michael, is it Jania? Is that how you say his last name? Here in Chicago. We did a story on him because he was, oh my goodness, he was hit hard between COVID and the looting. His store downtown Chicago was just, oh my goodness, the man had such a hard time, and he has rebounded and he is back on top again.
So I'll tell his story a little bit, because this is the success story of Lash Lounge, and he is the epitome of it. So Michael Jania was already a franchisee with Lash Lounge, and we had a location where, and sometimes it happens where someone realizes this business isn't for them. Right. Great location in River North, downtown Chicago. And what happened was the owner needed to get out. He said, John, I need to find someone to buy this business. So I met Michael, had some good talks with Michael. Thought, you know what? We already have this location that's built. You talked about it earlier. When you're building a brick and mortar, how long it can take. He'd been looking at locations in the Chicagoland area. And I said, Michael, I have this opportunity for you. You should look at it. I said, okay, John, I trust you. I believe you. They made a deal. He bought the business. Came to training end of January 2020. And you can imagine sometimes if a business owner isn't good at their craft, there may be a culture problem within the business. There was. Right. And he was trying to rebuild that culture. Then March 16th happened, and we started shutting down locations throughout the US.
Oh my gosh.
One state at a time. Might be 5 states one day, and the next day it's 10 states. Every day it's more states shutting down. So the whole US shut down. Well, he was one of those, obviously, in Illinois. So he shuts down, and he's one of the longer ones before he can reopen. Oh, it's June, I can reopen. And he realized his staff isn't coming back because he didn't have time to rebuild that culture. So part of what we do at Lash Lounge is we help train estheticians on how to do lashing. So we went ahead and did that, and we scheduled a time to come out. And he's got all his employees there. Sunday comes. We start training on Monday. Sunday comes, and there's the rioting that's happening in Chicago. Our corporate trainer is in a hotel a block away, right on the same street. And I get this frantic phone call saying, I don't know what to do. There's rioting going on beneath me. So make the call. We got to get her out. We don't know what's going to happen. And we got to protect our employees. And Michael's actually in Texas, dropping his daughter off at college and flying back. And we have to tell him, we got to move this. We don't know what's happened. Well, he then shares with me his location had been looted. And hey, Ray, I've got real life too. I've got this automatic timer that keeps going off. So let me just turn my light back on. And Michael uses, it can't see me, this sensor. So what happened was Michael said, I'm going to use this as a team building exercise. We're going to get the salon back up and running. We're going to order the supplies we need because everything was taken. Lashes, water, cash.
What do people do with that stuff?
Exactly.
We don't know. We've made some jokes about it, but we don't know. He had a video, so he sent me the video, and I see everyone piling up bins and just shoving everything, and they probably have no idea what to use it for, but who knows?
Yeah.
But Michael, being the trooper he is, I'm gonna use this as a team building exercise. Puts up barriers on the outside, wood barriers. I'm sure it's in the magazine, the picture, and he has an artist on staff. And I want to paint this, and let's do it all together. And they paint this nice, fabulous Lash Lounge sign outside. And then the next week we come back, we train his estheticians. So he's starting from scratch. Here is the cool part of the story. This was June of 2020. We call our top franchisee every month Queen, because they've all been women. And being a male, hey, I'm all for that. I was the only male on the Lash Lounge team, and I loved every moment of that. I have 4 daughters myself, and I raised them to be strong females. But I had always said, I want to hear about a Lash Lounge king. At some point, there's going to be somebody for the month who's going to be a male. And last month, he was the Lash Lounge king.
Awesome.
So by February of 2022, he took that location that he bought in January of 2020, and he was the top franchisees in sales. And we have one more day this month, but I looked. He's going to do it again. And not only is he going to do it again, but he's going to set the record for what a top location has done. So when you talk about that story, and I hope everyone reads about it, it's just a fabulous success story of what one person can do by breeding a culture of inclusivity, of breeding a culture of inspiring his employees and his guests that come in. Michael is not above doing anything. He's a chauffeur. Since he's in River North, sometimes he's got to go park the cars for the guests because they're running late. And he will go and do that.
Wow. Well, I got chills. Now I feel like I got to go get my lashes done.
You do, because you're in the Chicagoland area.
I am.
Absolutely do. And you can take Ray, because a male can get a tint and it'll make his brows and lashes.
Ray! Oh my God, Ray, we're going to have a date, and I'm going to go and you're going to go. Yes, I knew it. We're going to take that gray right out of your brows, Ray.
Yeah. So, as a child, I remember my relatives saying, "Oh, he has the most lovely lashes." But obviously, I don't now. But
well, we can make that all right by you again.
Ray, you just get a tint and it's done. You'll have your lovely lashes back.
Yeah.
So, John, I know, John, we're running out of time, but I have to. That was such a great story. Tell us quickly, Franworth has how many brands now? Because every time I seem like I look up Franworth, there's yet another brand that you have acquired and are helping grow. Tell us really quickly about that.
About it.
So we have 10 brands. We have different verticals that we work with. We have the beauty, which is Lash Lounge. And then we have a facial company, which is called SCOA Facial Shop. It's fantastic if you want to get a facial done. It's all products that we do in-house. So it's fantastic as well. We are looking to add a few other beauty brands in the future.
Okay.
We also have fitness with the Barcode and City Row.
Yep.
We have service-based businesses like Garage Kings for epoxy flooring. That's how you know it. It's really epoxy 2.0. I want to say that, even though there's a more technical name to it. It's not the epoxy flooring of the past where you drop something on the floor and it cracks or it gets wet and you slip and fall. This
Oh
is
my
more...
God, I have that one.
I did too. And
Yeah.
my first winter, luckily I was younger at the time. I slipped and fell, said, oh, I'm never going to do this again. But I got sold on this second one. It's flexible. It's got tactile texture to it, so you don't slip and fall, and it does a great job of keeping your garage floor clean. We also have a brand called Homesteady, which is a handyman service. It is going to be the first handyman service nationally that's going to offer membership. You get a discounted price.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And you bank hours, and when you're ready for them to come, you can make a honey-do list. And they, yes, I love this concept. Perfect. We also do something called Franchising for Good, which we have a Build Strong Academy, which is a nonprofit organization where we're assisting in training for free trades. It is fabulous. The goal of the Build Strong Academy is to touch 1 million lives. And that's what we're going to do. That's just a small sample size of what Franworth is. And all of these brands, except for Lash Lounge, has well under 100 locations. So our job and what we work to do is grow these businesses to above 100.
You just blew Kristen away.
I got blown away. I see that. I was like, oh my gosh, there I went. I got to come back now. I can see you, but you can't see me, but I'll figure this out, not to worry. I'll be back. I can hear you all. I'm just on the down low right now. So John, the one thing I really want to do is make sure, I think it was Josh that came on and talked to us about just that, talking about the Giving Back Franchising for Good. And I would love to have him come back on to tell us some more about that, because it sounds like this training for the trades has really grown since we've seen him last. Tell us, how do we get in touch with you, with Franworth? How do we go if people want to learn more about it? Obviously, they can call us if they want to talk about franchise opportunities, but if they want to talk a little more in depth, how do they go about that?
Okay, so 2 ways. And the easiest way that I think is you should go to franworth.com. We have a beautiful website with great videos explaining what we do, how we help franchisors, which ultimately helps franchisees, because we're in franchising for franchisees. Everything is about helping franchisees succeed, because if you want to be a successful franchisor, you have to do it at the local level. That's how you grow your business. But my recommendation is go to franworth.com, check out our website. There's contact us form on there. There's our whole team bio. You can see everyone who's on the team in the background. One of the great things about Franworth is combined, we have over 500 years of franchising experience. Awesome. It isn't just me where I shared, and I'm not going to, I'm an owner for 25 years, but I wasn't going to share how long I go back to McDonald's, but all together, we're over 500 years of franchising.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, listen, you look great. I think franchising has been very good to you. And obviously Franworth has kept that flame alive in your soul. And so I'm really happy to see that. And I know that not only will you do great things with Franworth, but so will the whole team that you guys have with you over there. So thank you so much for taking time with us. And we'll stalk you until we get you back on the show again to talk more about the individual brands.
I would love to, Kristen.
All right. You still owe me a cocktail, just so you know.
I owe you a cocktail. And I think I probably owe Ray a cocktail too now. Thanks, John. Thank you, guys.
Pleasure to see you.
Hey, franchise owners. How's your local marketing? Do you feel like you could use some help keeping up with your social media posts and comments and reviews? Do you wonder if you could be doing more to attract local customers? Are you able to identify new move-ins to your local area? At Westvine, we help franchisees like you reach more local customers through digital marketing. With daily monitoring, creative content, and ad placement, and customer data intelligence, we'll get your business in front of the people who want your products or services. We also work with franchisors who need an agency to handle the digital marketing for all of their locations. If you're ready to reach more local customers, give us a call at 805-265-5440 or visit us at westvine.com. That's 805-265-5440 or westvine.com.
Well, I think that's supposed to be Elizabeth. And it's probably all my fault because I got this this OBS Ninja thing all goofed up. Or it's supposed to be Jerry. Well, nonetheless,
Jerry,
There's
there he
Jerry.
is.
Jerry.
Oh, it was the side of his car.
Okay. Well, I'm glad we know who's supposed to be talking now, Kristen.
Yeah, sorry, Jerry. You're gonna have to. You're really
I
talking.
thought it was- I can talk to anybody, Kristen. I don't have any issues with that. I thought it was phenomenal listening to John. That was a great message, and I love what Franworth is doing. I want to do more research on Franworth now.
Yeah, it's really a great company, and Josh Titler, who's at the helm, he's a great individual as well. I'm glad to see that he's got John as his co-pilot. So
Yeah.
lots of great things to watch. I'm
Well,
sorry,
Kristen,
Kyle, not Josh. Josh, don't let that go to your head now.
Kristen, I'm going to deviate just a little bit because I know we're going to talk about chapter 11 in the book here in a minute, but I got a couple things. Number one, I've got a little word on the street I want to drop on the franchise world in case they haven't heard it.
Yeah,
We had a huge win in the U.S. Senate yesterday. We have been trying to not allow someone in to run the DOL who hates franchising, who actually wrote the book on all the problems with franchising, extrapolated and moved to a bigger level than it actually is. David Wheel got voted down yesterday. So I am hoping we never have to deal with that thing again. So we're all doing a mini celebration today. I think franchisees, franchisors, suppliers, frankly, the whole world should be, because it would have directly impacted all of the local franchise units had he been able to do the things that he was setting out to do in Washington, D.C. So that's huge.
You can't see me, but I'm raising my coffee cup to that right now.
Well, the fun thing is I can see you, but you can't. We don't see you on the screen, but I can see you.
Yeah, it's this ninja thing, and it's all because I had to go to my dungeon.
It's all good.
I've been sequestered to the dungeon.
So let's talk about chapter 11 in the book, Kristen.
Yeah, how to avoid it, right?
Yeah, so it's chapter 11, and the title is chapter 11 and how to avoid it. So, a little play on words there. Yeah. But I want to tell you, and I mentioned this to Karen when we first got started today, the reason I wrote the book is chapter 11, because I saw far too many people as I was consulting and coaching franchisees across the states. I saw far too many people get in trouble, and some of them actually ended up having to take chapter 11 in order to stop the pain, to stop the bleeding.
Right.
And so I wanted to have less of those problems in the world. I wanted to help franchisees make better decisions about the franchise system they choose. I wanted them to consider the risk that went with that. I wanted to come out of that with the best fit, with the best opportunity for success. And so avoiding chapter 11 is literally the reason I wrote the book, because I want to keep other people from going there. And then as I was writing the book, I ran into one of the top franchise attorneys in the United States, based out of Minneapolis. He's a good friend of mine named Ron Gardner. We've become friends through this process. And he's got an amazing story. I won't go into it today, but, like a lot of us, he started out not doing very well in the world and ended up being a top franchise attorney. And he literally lived for the little guy.
We're losing Jerry.
Yeah, as you can tell, Jerry's in his car, so as he garbles out a little bit, please forgive him.
he lives
Doesn't matter where he is, he's trying to get his message across, this one.
franchisee bought a system that doesn't support them.
Or Jerry, he's going to be so angry. I want to say, is it Verizon? Is it T-Mobile? Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me now?
There you go. We can hear you now, Jerry.
Well, to the world that's listening, I want to apologize, but I'm out helping franchisees today, stuck in the middle of nowhere. So,
yep, I know. That's what we were saying.
But really, Ron Gardner comes from a really tough background, and he ended up changing the world. And he works.
Well, we may have lost him again.
Yep.
Well, one thing we know is that all of this is well documented in Jerry's book. And I believe at some point in time, they're going to be working on an Audible book as well, so that you can listen to the book. And I assure you that when they get that done, it will not have issues. And the one thing I can say on Jerry's behalf is that he is absolutely right. The reason that he has often some of these interruptions is that he does service the whole state of Iowa and Nebraska. And of course, that means that he's out in the beautiful parts of the country that unfortunately do not have strong cell service. So please pick up a copy of Live It to Own It. He is referring to chapter 11, which is avoiding chapter 11, ironically and funny at the same time. And Jerry will be back with us again next week, where we may just revisit chapter 11, where when he has a better signal. So with that, let's go on to our next piece of the show. Thank you very much.
All right, everybody. As usual, we want to thank our sponsors, the Titus Center for Franchising and Franchise Show 247, for being a part of Pillars of Franchising. As we said before, Jerry and I are going down to the Palm Beach Atlantic University to socialize and network and learn at the board meeting down there. So we will give you an update after we get back about that. Also, our magazine comes out tomorrow with Ruth Agbaji on the cover from CodeWiz. So be sure, if you have not done it, please visit pillarsoffranchising.com and subscribe to the magazine, and let us know if there's anything else we can do for you. We have a whole menu of things you can select to tell us what you're interested in. Up next, we have Karen from Dale Carnegie. Hi, Karen.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Very good, very good. I was listening to Jerry, and I know it's so painful when you don't get a cell signal, right?
Technology is a beautiful thing until it's not.
It is, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I'm excited for your segment today, because we are going to talk about things that people don't want to talk about, right?
Absolutely. And, it's funny because Jerry was talking about the chapter 11. How do you avoid chapter 11? And there's so many great nuggets in his book. And one of the things that we talk a lot about, it's that people side, right? It's the people side of the business. And there's so many things about the people side of the business that can truly, as we've said, could blow your business up and can actually lead to chapter 11.
So you have a couple of things I think that we're going to go over, and some of them we've talked a lot about before, and some of them we haven't touched on as deeply. So we're going to skim through the first couple and then get to the meat of the conversation for today. So what are the first couple of points that we tend to talk about a lot?
The ones we talk about a lot are things like making sure that you share the same vision, making sure that you share the same values, you understand, what kind of culture you want to build, taking care of your employees. Those are some things that people talk a lot about. Even making sure you've got your business plan, that your exit, that you have an exit plan, and even thinking about expansion. So making sure you're on the same page there. I think. Well,
and as Ray likes to say, beginning with the end in mind.
Yes, it is so true, right? And sometimes even beginning with the end in mind, you'll talk about exit. But in my case, some of the franchisees I would work with, they didn't talk about expansion. Where one really wanted to expand and buy more, while the other partner did not want to do that. And so then you really had there was a lot of conflict within the partnership as well, because they weren't on the same page.
Yeah. So that perfectly leads us into the first thing that people don't want to talk about, that they need to talk about more. So what is that?
Well, it's called, how about Plan B?
Yeah.
So if you think about Plan B, it's like when you get married. You're always so happy. It's this new.
So you're saying we should have another one lined up on the side?
Not that, maybe not that Plan B. But so many times it's all rosy and we're so happy with our partners, and so we don't really want to have those hard conversations, those Plan B conversations. And some of that Plan B, it's things like, what happens if somebody dies? What's going to happen there? What happens if someone gets really sick? This happened with one of the franchisees I was working with, where one of the partners became very, very ill and couldn't work. Luckily, they had built into their agreement, their contract, what would happen, even the payments, how it would work. All those things are really important that I think a lot of people don't want to think about. They don't even want to bring up, because it's those hard conversations that can be somewhat of a downer. Yet, if you don't deal with those early on, when you start going through the partnership, they're even harder to have.
Well, absolutely. And I think Jerry's going through some of that right now with his franchisee who passed away. And now it may have to be probated and going through all these things that were not planned for. So that's a topic that I think is on the top of a lot of our minds, watching him struggle with this widow who's got to make all of these decisions now. So I think it includes talking with your family and how that's going to happen. But with the partnership, if one does pass, what is going to happen with that? Who's going to speak for that person? How is that going to be navigated, and how are those conversations? So Karen, how do you bring up those hard things? Because nobody wants to think about the bad stuff happening. We always want to try to put a positive spin on everything, but that is not going to help us when you have to get down to brass tacks.
What I found really works is just basically saying, okay, let's have a conversation about how we're going to communicate. I think that's, that's how you really start it. And to talk about those, okay, how are we going to handle these hard conversations? And almost having a list, bringing to the meeting, at the beginning to say, let's have a hard conversations, communication or conversation. And so how are we going to communicate? And one of the things that I always talk to people about is we're all different. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times, like, I might want to hear bad news a certain way, different from how you want to hear bad news. So even saying, Elizabeth, if you disagree with me, how should we handle that? How do you handle that? How do I want to receive information? I think it's really good to have those conversations. So then if you know that ahead of time, when you do have to approach someone about a difficult conversation, then you're like, okay, you had mentioned to me, this is how you'd like for me to have this conversation with you. So right. This person can't get so ticked off. And I think a lot of times when you have those ground rules in place, that really helps a lot.
Well, and don't you think that agreement ahead of time, or that plan, brings accountability to the conversation? Because if I tell you this is how I would like to receive the information, and then I explode about it, then that's really on me. Or if you come to me in a way that I had specifically said puts me off, or makes me defensive, and you don't do that. So there's an accountability in how you communicate, and you're both holding each other to it. So hopefully That's going to make for a more successful communication, don't you think?
Oh, totally. And I had a couple of business partners that I was working with, and they kept, obviously they were going to kick the can. So they kept not wanting to have these conversations about how they were going to be dealing with some really difficult decisions early on. And I told them both, this really sets the tone with even how you communicate on an ongoing basis. So this isn't even at first, this is really how your relationship, your partnership is going to evolve. And I think the beginning days, the beginning times can actually set that into place as well.
Yeah, because there are a lot of unknowns as you go through business ownership, and you may think you're aligned with somebody and maybe you're not as aligned as you thought you were. That's happened to me. And then what do you do? And one of the things we talked about before the call is what happens if somebody wants out? I mean, nobody plans that, but things come up in life, or things come up in business, or you realize that you're not on the same path and you don't want the same things. And so what are you going to do? So you're saying that conversation needs to happen early on.
Absolutely. And say, how are we going to handle this? Yeah. And what happens if we, again, I was in a partnership one time where I had two other partners, where one wanted to go one way, one wanted to go the other. They agreed at the beginning on where they wanted to go, but things happen, things change. So luckily they had some communication early on about, okay, if this ever happens, this is how we're going to deal with it. their point was they actually got a mediator. They had a mediator work with them. And so again, I think it's those things about how are we going to deal with things? How are we going to handle the hard stuff?
Yeah. And, a mediator is great. I'm in favor of those kinds of things, but that is an expensive thing to have to go through. So if you can plan these things from the beginning and have agreements on how you go through the stages and go through the different possibilities, you may even be able to avoid that situation.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Well, Karen, does that cover everything we needed to cover today?
The last thing, it's communicate.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a real key. It's not just communicating at the beginning, it's all the way through. And I think so many times, and I know I've been guilty of this in a lot of the different businesses that I've had, franchises I've been in, is that we get so busy working in, and I know it's just an overused phrase of working on the business versus working in the business. And we talk about it, but what is it? Sometimes it's common sense, not common practice. So one of the things I'd also recommend early on is to set a kind of like a communication schedule where whether it's monthly, whether it's quarterly, sitting down, having an agenda about also some of these conversations, what's happening in the business and planning for that. I think that also can head off some underlying issues that could be happening.
I think it does.
And then they boil up.
Yeah. I mean, we had, when we were working remotely and I was managing a team of writers, I took them to lunch once a quarter because everything was remote and I really almost never had to see their faces. This was before we were all Zooming. It was usually by email or a phone call, but having that face-to-face conversation with them once a quarter. And I could say, are you getting the feedback you need? Are you getting the instructions that you need? Do you understand what we're looking for when we say, hey, I need you to write this piece? Or what is it that bothers you? And what would make your life easier? And they had never had that before I did that with them. And they appreciated it so much. They were all freelance. So they just felt like they were on the outskirts of life and they didn't really matter to the business. So I think stuff like that too. If they know, they were just so delighted to go to lunch. It was such a simple thing, but it mattered to the relationships that we were building.
One of the things that we would always do is we